The nature, towns, and worlds created by Hayao Miyazaki and the rest of Studio Ghibli instill a feeling of childlike wonder like nothing else. But what if I told you that these places were not just inspired, but in some cases recreated from real locations around the world? And visiting them can bring back the feelings of seeing these films for the first time. Welcome to the Ultimate Studio Ghibli Travel Guide. Contrary to popular belief, there is no one onsen in Japan that Aburaya's iconic design is replicated. It instead takes inspiration from several bathhouses across Japan. The one most commonly attributed to its design is Dogo Onsen in Matsuyama, which is one of Japan's oldest and most famous hot springs, with roots leading back over 1200 years ago. Although it is currently undergoing major renovations, the first floor baths are still open to the public, and admission costs only 460 yen. A small price to pay to relax in such an iconic onsen. But it's not my favorite that the anime draws from. Deep in the mountains of Gunma lies Japan's oldest standing ryokan, Zeki Senkan, which was built over 300 years ago, and I don't think I need to tell you how it relates to Spirited Away. Although red bridges are common in Japan, few lead directly into a bathhouse. But it's not just the beautiful red bridge that Miyazaki drew from. The exterior is almost an exact match to the section that Chihiro stayed. But wait, there's more. To get between buildings, or maybe to another world, you can take the Romance Tunnel, which will transport you right into the realm of Spirited Away. It only takes around 3 hours from Tokyo to get here via train and bus, and the rooms are surprisingly affordable, so spending the night at Zeki Senkan is a must for Studio Ghibli fans. But if you can't make it so far outside the city, don't worry. Hotel Gajioen is located directly in Tokyo, and Miyazaki himself has stated that it was the inspiration for Aburaya's interior. The vibe and color scheme will surely instill the emotions of the anime. However, it is a luxury hotel with rooms running upward of 90,000 yen, making it one of the most expensive pilgrimages I've ever seen. If like me, you're on a pretty tight budget, instead visit the Edo Tokyo Architectural Museum, which has an old Tokyo Metro 7500 on display. The same model of train that Chihiro and No-Face ride across the water. The seat color doesn't match, but the wooden floors feel very Ghibli. The station they board from is said to be Shimonada Station. Personally, I wouldn't consider this a pilgrimage destination. Aside from its proximity to the Dogo Onsen and being right on the shoreline, I don't actually feel it matches the anime very closely. The reason people associate the two is due to the nearby sunken train tracks, but I still don't buy it. I'll touch on why in a second, but first you should know that despite what everyone on Instagram would have you believe, these tracks are on private property, and there's a bit of confusion online regarding whether or not it's okay to visit. A viral Facebook post claiming to be the owner made it extremely clear that people are not welcome, and that visitors have been disruptive and left a mess behind. But some people believe this post to have been a hoax, as others have quoted the owners as saying, "We are not causing trouble to tourists. In fact, we believe that it's a good thing for the region to be revitalized." In general, I'm okay with a bit of mischief, as long as you're quick, quiet, and clean up after yourself, but pilgrimage at your own risk. Or don't, because in my opinion, it is much more likely that Miyazaki was inspired by the 1959 typhoon that flooded the Meitetsu Tokoname line, but that didn't stop the Japanese people from living their lives. Ponyo takes place in the small seaside town of Tomocho, about a half hour outside of Fukuyama, a location that holds a very special place in Miyazaki's heart. Not only did its buildings and islands inspire the film, but it's also where Miyazaki wrote it. In the documentary 10 Years with Hayao Miyazaki, we see him hunker down in a house on a cliff by the sea, which is located right in the heart of Tomocho. So it's not hard to believe that while exploring the town, he would spot this yellow house with a red roof, which, like most Ghibli locations, is not a direct copy, but certainly bears a striking resemblance to Sosuke's home in the anime, especially the way it pokes its head up, giving a clear view of the entire port. I always hesitate to promote people's private homes as pilgrimage destinations, but luckily for us, this building is actually part of the Naramura Yukio Art Museum, which is open to the public every Sunday. The port area itself doesn't have any locations used as direct reference, but the overall vibe is very Ponyo. By the end of the movie, the flood has risen so high that the only safe place left is the hilltop gazebo, which in real life is the Mount Ushiro Park West Observatory deck, which really puts it into perspective just how high the water rose. I like to imagine Miyazaki sitting in here sketching the view, and visiting the gazebo in person would certainly bring back the emotions of the anime. Being such a small town, there is not a ton of public transportation, so the only real option to reach the peak of Mount Ushiro is by rental car. In my experience, towns like this are best experienced slowly, so I'd recommend spending the night. And what better place to stay than a ryokan literally designed by Hayao Miyazaki? On Funayado Iroha was a vacant building on the verge of demolition, but thanks to Miyazaki, was given a new life as a beautiful inn with a bath, garden, and display, featuring the original hand-drawn designs. There are only 2 rooms, Minna and Kakeochi, both of which cost 26,400 yen per night. But immersing yourself in a place not only important to Ponyo as an anime, but Miyazaki himself is priceless. When Marnie Was There is one of the most underappreciated Ghibli films, and is a bit of an outlier both in its style and its real-life locations. And part of that is because the novel the film is based on is English. So our first location is actually 3 hours north of London at the Burnham Overy Stithe Windmill, which is a close match to the silo that both Marnie and myself fear. Wanting to set the story in Japan, the studio set out in search of Japan's most British landscape, eventually settling on the east coast of Hokkaido. A great choice if you ask me. The town Marnie moves to is in Kushiro Wetland. Although there aren't specific shots in the anime you can recreate, the whole area definitely portrays the unique, mysterious marshy landscapes of the movie. And to really drive that feeling home, you can visit the Akeshi Shinryu Shrine, which was used as direct reference for the Tanabata festival scene. Although technically possible to traverse the swamp using some of what has to be the most remote and least used train stations in Japan, I would definitely recommend renting a car in Kushiro and driving location to location. At this point you must be wondering about Marnie's, or I guess Sayaka's, lakefront mansion. Well, it's not in England or Hokkaido. No, that would be too easy. It's in Nagano. Karuizawa Taliesin is a series of museums, gardens, archery ranges, tennis courts, monorails, mini golf courses, and go-kart tracks. But the part we care about is Suikyuso, a lakefront mansion built in 1931, which you can actually go inside of. There's a free shuttle to the park from Karuizawa Station, and entry is only 800 yen, but the museums and activities are paid for separately. I think more so than any other Marnie location, this peaceful view from across the lake truly carries the feelings of the anime. The tale of Princess Kaguya is a bit unique, since it's an adaptation of The Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, which is said to be the oldest surviving work of fiction in Japanese history. So its real-world setting is actually a blend of the original story and locations familiar to its director, Isao Takahata. The story is said to take place in Takasai Park, Shizuoka. The park itself fully embraces its connection to the story, building monuments and putting up signs that outline the original tale. Located just a 15-minute drive from Shinfuji Station, the park features this gorgeous bamboo forest that will transport you directly into the world of the anime. The reason Takasai Park is more credible than other bamboo forests is the original tale makes direct reference to smoke billowing out of the then active Mount Fuji, which is located just 22 kilometers from the park. On the other hand, the gorgeous lone cherry tree that appears in the anime is said to be located in Nogawa Park, Tokyo, a place Takahata was known to walk through often during the production of The Tale of Princess Kaguya. Although not the most extensive anime pilgrimage, it's only an hour outside of Tokyo, and I think walking in the director's shoes would make for a lovely afternoon. From Up on Poppy Hill is hands down Goro Miyazaki's best work, and despite being set in Yokohama in 1963, there are still some great pilgrimage locations you can visit today. Starting here at Harborview Park, which since the film's release, has flown Umi's flags, wishing any passing ships a safe voyage in honor of her father, and of course the anime. Just below the flags is a plaque which explains the city's connection to the film, which is signed by Goro Miyazaki himself. After exploring the park and whatever this is, you can walk about 10 minutes to the Miyazaki Florist, which appears true to life in the background as Umi and Shun bike down the hill. And just one block over, you can eat the very same croquettes while enjoying the Ghibli vibe of downtown Yokohama. Walking just another 10 minutes towards the coast, you'll find yourself at the foot of the Yokohama Marine Tower, which being built in 1961 has not changed a bit. Taking the elevator up to the observation deck costs over 1,000 yen, and in my opinion, you can get a better view of the city from the whale's back, which is just a 15-minute walk away and free. Right next to the tower is Hikawa Maru, the exact ship that appears docked in the anime. Built almost 100 years ago, the ship has become a historical landmark and on weekends is open to the public for just 300 yen. Continuing along the boardwalk, you'll see the historic Hotel New Grand, which was used to house American troops after the war. Finish off at the old steel turntable, which just like in the anime, has a great view of the government office and customs building. Also in Yokohama is the former Yanagishita residence, which is said to be the model for Umi's boarding home. But personally, I don't see the resemblance. But if you decide to visit, you might as well stop in at the nearby Tram Museum, which houses a ton of old streetcars that will surely give you a better sense of the anime's setting. As a huge fan of Earthsea, Goro Miyazaki's adaptation was disappointing to say the least, but it has one surprisingly cool pilgrimage location. In Hort Town, where Aaron is kidnapped, the massive aqueducts that can be seen are clearly inspired by the aqueduct of Segovia in Spain, which is over 700 meters long, and despite being built in the 1st century AD, is still in use to this day. My Neighbor Totoro might be the easiest Ghibli location to find of them all. Just search Totoro's Forest. Wait, number 48. Just how many are there? 57 to be exact. The magical home of Catbus, Totoro, Smaller Totoro, and even Smaller Totoro is said to be located in Tokorozawa, not Totorozawa, Tokorozawa. Since 1991, a nature organization known as the Totoro Fund has been buying land in the Sayama Hills to preserve the sanctity of the anime location. And also the nature. The 57 Totoro forests cover a total area of 108,000 square meters. But don't worry, they're all connected with a beautiful series of paths that will make you start to worry about maybe bumping into Totoro in real life. The park is only a 20-minute walk from the nearest train station. I'd recommend giving yourself a whole day in this area to explore the nearby lakes as well. And if you're interested, go on a tour of the Totoro Fund headquarters, which features a small museum and a not-so-small Totoro statue. Also in the area is Shin Yamanote Hospital, which is the model for where Yasuko stayed. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend visiting, unless of course you rolled your ankle in the Totoro forest, because it doesn't resemble the anime too closely, and of course is an active hospital, not a tourist destination. Speaking of tourist destinations, it's finally time to mention the Ghibli theme park, which is located about 45 minutes outside downtown Nagoya, and is home to an exact replica of Mei and Satsuki's home from the anime. The authenticity of the theme park is breathtaking, and the choice to put it so deep in the woods makes the whole thing so much more immersive. The park also features the Rotary from Whispers of the Heart, the Bureau from The Cat Returns, the Village from Princess Mononoke, and as of 2024, the Bakery from Kiki's Delivery Service, Howl's Castle, and the House of Witches from that one movie that we don't talk about.
Ugh, disgusting.
Not to mention the Grand Warehouse, which is a mini Ghibli world in itself. Tickets go on sale 3 months in advance and sell out very quickly. You have to book each attraction separately, and entry times are strictly enforced. So much for the slow, relaxing Ghibli vibes. Currently, to see everything will run you around 5,000 yen, but that will increase as more attractions open. Then of course, there's also the Ghibli Museum, which is absolutely essential to see for any Ghibli fan. I won't spoil too much, just trust me, it's worthwhile. Tickets are only 1,000 yen and go on sale the 10th of every month for the following month. I recently tried buying tickets and was placed number 9,000 in line, so make sure you come prepared. And don't forget, Japan is one day ahead, at least for North America, so really tickets go on sale on the 9th. The Wind Rises is perhaps my favorite Ghibli film, so of course visiting its real locations is at the top of my bucket list. The hospital Naoko stays in is a direct model of the old Fujimi Kogen Sanatorium, but it was demolished in 2012 prior to the anime's release, so it is no longer possible to experience. But the home where Jiro and Naoko lived while in hiding is based on the Maeda family villa, which is open to the public free of charge. Just a 1-hour bus ride from Kumamoto, the Maeda villa is a beautiful, historic, and spot-on pilgrimage destination. But the real crown jewel of The Wind Rises is the Kusakaru Hotel. The inspiration for its setting was Manpei Hotel in Nagano, which has been famous among foreigners as far back as the 1800s. But visually, it doesn't look too much alike, at least not anymore. When it first opened, the hotel looked much more similar, and it is clear Ghibli took inspiration from the front terrace. But as for the rest of the hotel's design, in my opinion, it more closely resembles the Kamikochi Imperial Hotel. Which hotel you stay at depends on if your interests lie more in the visuals or in the spirit of the anime. Both options would surely evoke Jiro's emotions. Unfortunately, both hotels are very expensive and tend to sell out many months in advance. But unlike Kamikochi, Manpei is right in downtown Karuizawa, so it is easy enough to walk to and experience the exterior without actually spending the night. Whispers of the Heart is a fantastic little pilgrimage. The whole route takes less than an hour on foot, but has everything a fan could want. From photo-accurate scenes, to anime decorations, and most importantly, food. The expedition starts at Seiseki Sakuragaoka Station, which is just a half hour from Shinjuku. You can see scenes from the anime before even leaving the station, but keep in mind, the movie took place in 1994, so things have definitely changed. But don't let that get you down. Just outside the station is the Post of Youth, a miniature version of the antique shop from the film. On the front is a mail slot where you're meant to insert a letter outlining your dreams for the future. And next to it is a map of anime locations around the city. Walking about 10 minutes, you'll cross the bridge from the final scene and begin your ascent up the Aroha Zaka slope, which is where a ton of the anime takes place, so keep your eyes peeled for locations. At the top is Konpiragu Shrine, which was recreated identically in the scene where Shizuku is confessed to. Continuing on another 7 minutes, you'll find the roundabout from the anime, which was also rebuilt in the Studio Ghibli theme park. Congratulations, you just saved 1,000 yen. Unfortunately, there is nothing resembling the antique shop here. But fortunately, there is the Noah Bakery, which, although not featured in the anime, it has modeled itself after Whispers of the Heart. It is full of decorations, cat statues, cat cookies, pilgrimage maps, and they even play Country Roads on repeat. All day long. So, although working there is a fate worse than death, visiting is a great way to end your adventure. The house that Arrietty lives in, or underneath, is based on Seibien, a historic Japanese mansion in Aomori, originally built in 1909. At first glance, the resemblance isn't immediately clear, but what makes this building one of a kind is its blending of Japanese and Western architecture. And I feel this blending of cultures is very present in the house from the film. Not to mention the surrounding gardens, which have a very Ghibli feel to them. Entry is only 500 yen, but Seibien is located quite far outside of any major city, so if you're looking for something a little easier, perhaps take a short hike through Hake no Koji, the Tokyo location of the stream that Arrietty and her family set sail on in their teapot. The stream leads into Nogawa River, which then flows under the Tenjin Bridge, also featured in the film. What makes these locations so special is their proximity to the real Ghibli studio. It's not hard to imagine the director taking a stroll through here while on break. I've added the studio to the map for reference, but it is an active office and not open to the public, so please don't get in the way of us seeing any future Ghibli work. But if you accidentally just happen to find yourself in the area and glance to your right while continuing at a brisk pace, that's your prerogative. The Cat Returns is another easy pilgrimage, for natural reasons. Most of the anime is not based on real places, but the opening scene of Haru being late for school and Truck-kun's origin story are both set in Tokyo. The best route is to follow in Haru's footsteps, beginning your journey outside of Harajuku Station in Shibuya, where you'll find an exact match to the overpass where she lost her shoe. Riding the train about 30 minutes, you'll arrive in Suginami City at our most important location, the MYNT Cake Boutique, where you can stuff your face with cat-shaped treats till your heart's content. Unlike in the anime, the quirky storefront doesn't actually face the street, but is actually just a few doors down the alley. To buy the cakes, you need to head to their new location on the corner, but the store is more than happy for you to take photos of its original location. Follow the 427 towards Asagaya Station, and you'll be on the street where Haru saves the black cat and kickstarts the events of the film. It's hard to pinpoint the exact spot it happened, but the sidewalk, fence, trees, and parking meters confirm that you're in the right place. Bonus points if you can find a stray cat while on your expedition. I never would have guessed that the fantastical setting of Howl's Moving Castle took direct inspiration from a real-world location. But Studio Ghibli has gone on record to say that they pulled from the city of Colmar in France. The canal-lined streets look like something directly out of a storybook, and while Howl and Sophie skip across the rooftops, an exact model of Maison Pfizer appears. Although few exact scenes have been found, exploring anywhere in this area would surely evoke feelings of the anime. The valley Sophie and Markle stop at for tea is said to be reminiscent of the Karakol Valley in Kyrgyzstan. How fans of the anime managed to find that is beyond me. If only we could just turn a knob and be transported to the anime locations. Ocean Waves doesn't get very much love, but perhaps visiting its real locations will give you a new appreciation for it. Set in the city of Kochi, this is definitely Studio Ghibli's most true-to-life film. Scenes were pulled from all over the city, but some of the most important ones include Kochi Castle, which appears several times throughout the anime. The castle is one of few in Japan that has survived all the wars and fires, with its current building dating back to the 1700s. And just next door is Kochi Otomae High School, with its iconic Imperial Crown-style clock tower that fans of the anime will immediately recognize. One of the city's main tourist attractions is the massive Obiyamachi shopping arcade, so naturally, it was featured in the film. Stretching on forever, it was not easy finding the exact frame used, but I eventually narrowed it down to the Central Park entrance. Another popular spot is the nearby Tenjino Bridge, which has an amazing view of the Kagami River and this love hotel. Unfortunately, the Port Taku and Yutaka drive-to is a 2-hour train ride outside of the city, in a small town called Kure. There isn't much else to do in the area, but given the scene's importance, it might be worthwhile. The final scene of the anime is back in Tokyo at Kichijoji Station, which hasn't changed at all in the 30 years since the anime's release. And the same can be said for the Hyatt Regency Hotel, where Taku and Rikako stayed. Considering its magical fantasy setting, Kiki's delivery service is surprisingly grounded in its real locations. The anime is set in Sweden, with most of its locations taken from either Stockholm or the town of Visby on Gotland Island. While exploring these places, it becomes obvious that Miyazaki did extensive location scouting for this film. But a few of the most important ones include, well, the bakery, of course. Its exterior is modeled after a restaurant in Visby. Despite not overlooking the sea, the resemblance of its architecture is undeniable, right down to the staircase leading up to Kiki's room. And the entire town itself looks straight out of Kiki. The interior, however, is inspired by Bageriet, a bakery in Stockholm. which is confirmed by the golden pretzel hanging out front. Just a 45-minute walk from there is Stockholm City Hall, where Kiki regains her flight and rescues Tombo from the crashed blimp. You can find little elements of the anime all across Stockholm, making it one of the few must-see anime destinations not in Japan. If you'd like to download this map I've made containing every location talked about in this video, as well as useful links and image references, it's available to the extremely neat tier on my Patreon, where you'll also find dozens of other anime maps, exclusive videos, and a few bonuses in the Discord server. Link in the description. Part of Only Yesterday is set in 1982 with Taeko as an adult, while the rest is set all the way back in 1966, and the film was released in 1991. So, as you can imagine, most places have changed significantly since then. Most man-made places, that is. This might be my favorite location out of this entire video, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Several train stations appear in the anime, starting with Ueno Station, which, although clearly modernized, still features Genichiro Inokuma's Freedom mural, which was painted all the way back in 1951. From there, Taeko journeys to Yamagata Station, which unfortunately no longer bears much of a resemblance to the film. Picked up by Toshio, the two drive out into the country, and although the city has changed, a few of the more rural locations look almost identical, so recreating this drive would be a great way to experience the anime. At the end of the movie, Taeko departs from Takase Station, which still looks somewhat familiar, but if you have a time machine, maybe head back to 1999 before it was renovated. Having a last-second change of heart, Taeko changes trains at Yamadera Station. But of course, the best Only Yesterday location is Mount Zao, where Taeko and Toshio ride the Zao Kata chairlift up to the Okama crater. A round-trip ticket is only 800 yen, which is a steal considering how amazing the view at the top is. This is one of those places that I don't think I ever would have found if it weren't for the anime. War is a common theme Studio Ghibli explores, most poignantly in Grave of Fireflies. So doing a pilgrimage to this anime's real locations would certainly be a somber experience, but one that I think could give you a deeper understanding of the story. The anime's main setting is in Kobe, a city severely damaged during World War II, but certain locations are still recognizable, such as Kobe Sanomiya Station from the tragic opening scene, which, although rebuilt, kept the original design. In the past, the tracks ran straight through the building. From there, head to Ishiyagawa Station, which the film shows completely destroyed. Follow along the river until you see Mikage Public Hall, which in the film is the only building left standing. There you'll find a monument built to commemorate the story. Porco Rosso's setting is self-evident, as the anime follows Porco as he flies all around the Adriatic Sea. One of the more iconic locations from the film is Hotel Adriano, a very distinct island hotel that looks almost identical to St. George Island in the Bay of Kotar, Montenegro, which in real life is a monastery. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear there's any way to tour the island, so it can only be enjoyed from afar. Aboard a seaplane, perhaps. Since Fio's repair shop is located in Milan, it is most likely that Porco's great escape took place on the Naviglio Canal, which has bridges and buildings very reminiscent of the anime. And of course, we have to take a look at Porco's hideout, which is actually a hotly contested location. Some say it's inspired by Navajo on the Ionian Islands of Greece, while others say that it's Steniva in Croatia. Both definitely resemble the hidden beach, and given the location, one or both of them was most likely used as inspiration, but personally, I actually think there's a better match right in Japan. On the coast of the Izu Peninsula, called the Ryugu Sea Cave, which is the only one to have that 360-degree cave cover. Let me know in the comments which one you think is most similar. Pom Poko doesn't have a ton of pilgrimage locations, but there is one worth mentioning. The Kincho Shrine in Tokushima, which is not only an exact match to the one from the film, but in real life is a shrine to Kinsho Daimyojin, a hero in the famous Awa Tanuki War of the Tenpo era. Yes, you heard me right. The same Tanuki folklore that inspired the Ghibli film is immortalized in this shrine. Or at least should have been. It was unfortunately scheduled for demolition a few years back, but so far has been preserved by the Shrines Association and fans who have signed their petitions. A tremendously ironic situation given the themes of the anime. Don't worry, I will be very careful to avoid spoilers here. For obvious reasons, The Boy and the Heron does not have very many pilgrimage locations, but given how many parallels there are between Mahito's story and that of Miyazaki's own childhood, it is very likely that inspiration was taken from the town of Utsunomiya, where Miyazaki was evacuated to during the war. Unfortunately, due to the bombings, it is not possible to compare the locations. Everything from Iron Town to the Forest of Spirits was inspired by Yakushima, an island 100 kilometers off the coast of Kagoshima, with a population of only 12,000 people, at least. 90% of the island is covered in dense forest, and the island gets up to 390 inches of rain per year, making it not only one of the rainiest places in Japan, but the entire world. The locals would tell you, but also that on Yakushima, it rains 35 days a month. When looking at images of the island, it is easy to see where Hayao Miyazaki got his ideas from. The lush and harsh forests look straight out of Princess Mononoke. The island is even home to gangs of monkeys, deer, and tanuki. Sadly, the boars and wolves only live in Miyazaki's mind. There are 3 ways to get to the island. You can fly from Fukuoka, which takes around 1 hour, there's a jet foil boat you can board on foot, which takes 2 hours, or drive onto the ferry, which takes 4 hours. Although getting to the island can be quite expensive, I think it would be well worthwhile. Getting to experience such untouched and isolated wilderness would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But if you can't make it out to such a remote location, don't worry. There is one other place that was used as reference in the film. The Shirakami Mountains in Aomori Prefecture, where a sparkling blue pond, aptly named Aoike, is said to have inspired the pool of the forest spirit. The pond is a 2.5-hour drive from either Aomori or Akita, but both routes would make for a beautiful road trip, and the lakes and mountains that surround the pond would make a great place to camp in the summer. To see videos of me traveling around Japan in search of iconic locations from anime, check out this playlist here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.